We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. You can get Locked On Astros on podcasting app Himalaya, as well as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. When you get in your car, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Astros. Today's episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you'll ever need. Whether you're trying to get to game 3 of the ALCS or whether you're trying to be a pitcher who's trying to throw as good a game as he could, but it's just not quite enough. So just go to rockauto.com and get the parts you need. So let's go and talk about this game. I don't think I'm as down as I was after yesterday's loss. I think yesterday's loss was a little bit more frustrating. This game was kind of out of reach after the error. And this is something that Jose Altuve doesn't do. He hasn't made an error all season long. Then all of a sudden he makes 2 errors in this game. And the first one was a big costly one because the Rays were able to get a 3-run homer by Manuel Margot. So before we get started on that, let's go and introduce everybody. Brett, where can they find you on Twitter?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and at Stros411, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, never down and out, always Stros.
And if you're wondering if you can fish and watch the Astros play baseball, we got Clay Hensley, former big league pitcher, and he's going to talk to us about the Astros, what he saw in today's game. So where can they find you at, Clay?
Well, you can find me at a bay or a lake near you, obviously. But at chensley32 on Twitter and on Instagram, clay.hensley.
All right, so this game, I know Brett and I did this 4-hour-long hot mic thing, and it was interesting. It was our first time doing something like that. I don't know if we're going to ever do a 4-hour thing again, like the whole game, but that was by the end we're just like dead. And so, but yesterday's game was a little bit more frustrating. I think today's game was like, oh, well, you give up the 3 runs in the first inning. It's hard to ask the offense to come back from that. So, as a former pitcher, what was it like for Lance McCullers, even after he gave up that 3-run homer, the way he battled 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, he did his thing. So as a former pitcher, what was he thinking?
No, I mean, look, that's what you're asked to do, right? Your manager asked you to go out there and get on the bump, especially in the playoff situation. You're down a game now, and he goes out and he did his job. His job is to go out there, eat up some innings, and give his ball club a chance to win. And he did that. And then Astros, they hit the ball hard, but they hit the ball hard right at people, and they didn't get some of the timely hits that they needed. And then coming down, opening the game with a 3-0 deficit is always a little bit more stress on your offense. But the way that McCullers settled down, was able to go through some of these innings, a lot of strikeouts, threw a lot of pitches, but he took it deep in the ball game, which, in the end, it saves them Dusty Baker a chance for that bullpen to be fresh for tomorrow.
No, yeah, exactly. And I think the most unlucky person on the entire team was probably Alex Bregman. He was 0 for 5, and there wasn't a single ball that he didn't absolutely smoke. I mean, he hit it right at him. And, I always say it's almost like the fielders have magnets in their gloves. And to kind of piggyback off what you talked about with Lance McCullers, and I know I'm talking like little league or select ball pitchers, but I always tell pitchers that I coach, it's your job to throw strikes. It's not your job to get strikeouts. It's not your job to get outs. It's your job to throw strikes. If you throw strikes, the guy's going to swing and miss, or if they hit, you got a defense behind you. And that's why they're on the field. It's not you against the team. It's the team against the team. And you're just delivering the ball. So you deliver strikes, we got your back. And that was a big, big time error. And I don't know if you saw the replay, but when Margot's home run went out, Jose Altuve looked absolutely dejected. Like he knew, had I not made that error, because with 2 outs, they get out of the inning, and we're possibly talking about the Astros winning this game 2-1, like the Padres did in game 1.
Right. Well, here's what happens. It changes the entire scope of the ball game. Not only are you a little bit, not upset, because you're never going to get upset at your teammate for making an error. Errors happen. We all make mistakes out there. But a guy like Altuve, they've made that throw so routinely, so easy, like it's not a problem. But there you go. You got some of the pressures of the playoff situation and the atmosphere and what's really on the line here. Some of those easy little throws that are so routine throughout the season all of a sudden get a little bit tight, and he short hopped them and it proved costly. And something like that, whenever you have a 2-out error, and you're on the mound and your team's out there fighting, it's early in the ball game. And then you see Manny Margot come up and hit a jack to go up 3-0 early in the game, just as they did. That is tough. That's a tough one to swallow. Not only was it tough for Altuve because obviously Gold Glover knows what he's doing out there, but that is on him. He does feel like that's on him, and he should carry that kind of weight. That's what makes him as good as he is. That kind of takes the wind out of the sails early, right? You can always go down 1, you can always go down 2, even 3 early in a ball game, even if you're starting the game, but you still got a lot of time to catch up. But when it happens like that, whenever it's just kind of a big slap in the face, but it's just a different vibe and a different kind of tone in the dugout at that point. I mean, you want to be positive. You want to say, hey, let's pick them up. Let's get going. We can do this. We can get back on it. But at the end of the day, you start to realize man, this could give us an opportunity here to where we might not win this ball game based on an error from a guy that knows how to throw to first base. But look, hey, errors happen. It's part of the game. You got to pick them up and you got to keep going. And I think for the most part, the team did.
Yeah, to kind of address what you just said, Lance McCullers after a game, he said that I actually looked over at Jose Altuve after he made the error, and I'm like, it's fine. I've got this. And that's the kind of mentality as a pitcher you have to have. But, and Brett, to kind of go off what you were talking about earlier, Bregman had 5 hard hit balls today at 95 plus mile per hour exit velocity. They were all outs, including that game ending fly out to center field.
Right.
But it just was one of those games where it seemed like nothing was going the Astros way, nothing. And Dusty Baker after game said they got away 2 days in a row, but they can't keep getting away. So something's going to have to start breaking the Astros way, because they had 10 hits. The Rays only hit 4 or 6 or something. And
they had 4 hits. Yeah.
So it's just crazy how they're just, everything's going this way. And we saw this last year kind of towards in the National Series, especially when they played at Minute Maid Park, where they just kept on, game 1, game 2, they would dominate. Then the Astros went to Nationals Park and they just kind of dominated there. And then the Nationals came back and dominated here. So sometimes you just can't, there's little certain ghosts in there that you can't get rid of. Especially the bad thing about the Astros is they can't come back home. Their definition of going back home is they're going to bat second tomorrow. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, hey, on that note real quick, and I didn't mean to interrupt there for you, Brett.
No, you're good.
Brett, I want to touch on what you were saying about the balls getting hit hard. Those are outs, but they're hitting the ball hard. How do they stay the course? This right here is where the challenge is for Dusty Baker to get the young guys to buy into this thought process, because I'm telling you, it's a big deal. You have to let some of these games go down the drain with the shower, is what we were taught. I remember Cameron and Trevor Hoffman, they used to be like, hey, kid, you can get mad about the game, but it goes down the drain with the shower. You got to be ready to come back tomorrow, especially in a playoff atmosphere. If it's tough to swallow the pill of a loss in a game like this and what everything means and what is all on the line, right? But if you're hitting the ball hard, getting 10 hits, the pitchers are going out there going deep in ball games. You're not getting boat raced out there. They're not banging you around the box. You are hitting the ball hard. They're going right at guys. That's just the law of the percentages of this game. The reality of it is, in a perfect situation, and I sat with Kurt Manwaring a long time ago, back in 2001, 2002, and we're talking about being confident and throwing pitches out over the plate and letting it happen, pitching to contact, essentially. We would sit out in BP and they would hit balls in a perfect situation. And we would sit there and we'd look at him and he'd say, okay, that's a hit, that's an out, that's a hit. And in a perfect situation, these guys are hitting themselves out of it most of the time. And that's BP, okay? Now, in a game situation like this, and you have the Astros hitting the ball hard, but they're going to be out sometimes. It's just the way it goes. And, like what you were saying, Eric, it's like, hey, something's got to give, something's got to change. The challenge Dusty has tonight or this evening, and then going into tomorrow's game and getting everybody to truly buy into it, because like I said, it's a tough pill to swallow a loss like this, is to say, guys, stay the course. Keep throwing the ball. Keep hitting it hard. They're going to fall in. We're hitting the ball. We're lining out. If you some of these outs, like you said about Bregman, the exit velocity on these, they're hard hit balls. They're going to fall. What you hope for as an Astros fan, if you're sitting there watching, or even if you're in the locker room, is that does actually start to transcend. We continue to hit the ball hard, and they do start to fall in.
Yeah, exactly. And so just to continue talking those lines with the Astros, I would much rather them be losing these games 4-2 and 2-1 rather than being against the Yankees, because I feel like if the Yankees right now were playing us, I feel like the Yankees might actually be scoring 6, 7, 8 runs. They might. I don't know. I mean, Lance McCullers was dealing, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, they have a much more powerful lineup. So what we have to look at is the silver lining is, like you said, they're not getting just their heads bashed in when it comes for runs. Their pitchers are still dealing. So with your experience with Dusty Baker, can you share some of your experiences with him, the way he talks to players, maybe a little insight? I don't know how inside you can go, player to coach, but what are some things, what are some approaches he takes with players in like tough situations? Have you heard him talk to players? Has he ever talked to you, when you were playing for him?
Yeah. Look, Dusty, it takes a lot to really get this guy upset, right? I think when he flies off the handle, a lot of people think about, you think about little league coaches, or you even think about high school and college coaches. If you're losing ball games, you think that most of the time, those managers or coaches at the time would come in and air you out, like, about what you're doing wrong and what needs to be fixed. But look, these guys are men, they're professionals. And Dusty Baker knows that. He's been around the game a long time. The guy knows how to win. And he's going in, he's keeping everybody calm and loose, because like we just talked about, we're talking about, like, we're hitting the Astros are hitting the ball hard. Okay. They're throwing and they're going out there and for the most part, pounding the zone. But if anything, they're going deep in ball games and not getting boat raced. Okay. I think there probably could be some better strike location on a lot of these pitches, but again, it's pitching. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody could do it. And it's hard. These guys are good hitters out there. I think Dusty's back there in the locker room probably telling these guys, like, hey, stay the course. Keep it up, kids. Keep swinging, because they are hitting the ball hard. They will eventually fall in. The hopes are that we just don't run out of time before that does happen.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead. Sorry.
Something that did come up today was Jose Altuve's errors, not to go back to that, but Carlos Correa made a decision, and him and Jose Altuve talked about it. And they actually switched when they did the shift to right field. It wasn't Jose Altuve out there. It was Carlos Correa out where Jose Altuve kind of plays. And so I guess Jose Altuve was just like, you know what? I've already made 2 errors today. I don't know if I should be putting myself in the same position today. Tomorrow's a new day. But today he's like, you know what, Carlos, go out there. You got the better arm. I don't trust myself today. Have you ever seen a player really take himself out of a position like that?
Well, so here's the deal. Petco had some shadows this time of day when they were playing. And my personal opinion on it is that based on what I was seeing from like the way it looked like from the mound, it gets tough to see. Depending on the angle that some guys have a tough time seeing the ball off the bat. I'm more certain than not that was probably the conversation. Not really taking himself out of it, but saying, hey, bud, I can't really see the ball off the bat. Can you see it better than me? And maybe he's seen the ball a little bit better. Maybe he's got some lenses on, who knows? But for whatever reason, he's like, I don't want to make another error. I'm pretty sure it was probably more so the shadows than it was anything else.
Yeah. So speaking of not being able to do certain stuff, like I can't work on my car, but Brett, he really knows how to work on his car, and he can go out there. And I think Dusty Baker looks like somebody who could probably go out there and change the oil filter and all that type of stuff. So Brett, if Dusty Baker after the season wants to work on his car, where can you get some good parts at?
I'm glad you asked. Well, I've got the perfect solution for him. It's called rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, Pacificas, XT5s, Fiats, Kias, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, whatever it is now possible to stock all the parts you need. It is not possible to stock all the parts you need in a traditional chain front store. Why endure often pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while you ask the counterman to look it up, then he says it's on back order, he can't get to it? Go to rockauto.com, because they will not treat you any differently than they treat anybody else. So they're not going to upcharge you if you're not a professional repairman. They're going to charge you the same, and you're going to save 30 to 50 to 100% off. That's right. No matter where you go, no matter what you do,
What about a Ford?
Yep.
Ford is, because that stands for fix and repair daily, doesn't it? I'm joking. So a fuel pump assembly at rockauto.com is going to be something that's easy to find. You type in your make, your model, like my Nissan Titan V8. I'll be able to get some side steps. I need to get some new ones soon. I'm going to rockauto.com. Family-owned business for 20 years. Easy to use catalog. Unique, remarkably easily navigable website at rockauto.com. When you purchase, write Locked On their How Did You Hear About Us section. Let them know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com.
Okay, so this is 2 straight days that the Astros have wasted great, not good, but great starting pitching in the playoffs. Framber Valdez pitched 6 innings, only gave up 2 runs. Off the top of my head, 8 strikeouts. And then we saw what Lance McCullers did today. And now we have Jose Altuve coming up tomorrow. What do you think is on his mind tonight as he tries to go to sleep in anticipation of this big start tomorrow and not knowing if the offense is going to show up?
Well, if he sleeps, I'm going to be surprised. Like these are the games that keep you up, and you try your hardest to get rest and get focused on. But look, this is what you practice for. It's what you play for. This is what the season's made for. This opportunity to get to the playoffs. It's rare for teams, players, in general, to ever get an opportunity in the postseason. And so he's going to seize on it. That's what he's thinking. He's thinking that, for the most part, the starting rotation has kind of set the tone for him. So just follow the suit. It's just, you don't want to overthink the game and why the games are being lost, but you want to look at your starting rotation, your partners, your mates that you're in there in the dugout with, talking about the hitters throughout the first 2 games. And, I would imagine that he's probably pretty well versed on what the tendencies are right now and what the successes are and that need to be had to throw against the Tampa Bay Rays, because all he's got to do is ask the guys that have already been pitching, and he's been watching those games. So I think he's going to follow suit and just try to keep the tone going as it is.
It's amazing when you look at the box score, when you look at the line, the 4 hits, literally 2 home runs and 2 singles for the Rays. The Astros, a solo home run and a double by Maldonado. They had 10 hits. 8 of those 10 hits were singles. You are not going to win these games with singles. I mean, obviously, you're not getting the runs across the plate. They left 11 on base. They were 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. And like you said, Bregman was 0 for 2. We talked about his 0 for 5 in this game. But I still think that this series is still within reach. I don't think it's out of reach. They haven't won 4 games. They're not up 3-0. The Astros have a real shot here. And I believe that these guys believe in themselves because they've displayed that to us over and over again on the national stage. They've proven people wrong. I mean, from the first playoff series this year, not a single national writer picked the Astros to beat the Twins. Now they're like, oh, the Twins were supposed to lose. Now everybody's an expert on the Twins, but they beat them. Then what did they do? We go in and we win the ALDS. Oh my God, Oakland's going to beat them because they owned us. And now, oh, look, they're supposed to lose because they're the Astros. They got here. They're lucky. I think this is actually where the Astros will shine. When their backs are to the wall, Eric and I have talked about this before, they do really well. They're like a caged lion. They're like a caged tiger. Or, not to quote a Dirty Dancing line, but don't put baby in the corner, all right? Don't put the Astros in the corner and expect to come out smelling like roses, because the second you put them in the corner, man, you better watch out. They may have awakened a sleeping giant today. They're going to come out with the fire in their belly tomorrow. I really believe that. And that is the great ability and confidence that I have in this team, not just as a fan, but as someone who just loves the game of baseball. And that's what we want to see.
Well, I got to say something on that. It's kind of an unwritten rule that if you ever make a Dirty Dancing quote, then you got to walk like Patrick Swayze did down that aisle whenever he was dancing. So we're going to have to see that. No, but look, it's one of those things where I think when it comes to sports, for the most part, and primarily Major League Baseball, it's the underdog that everybody likes to root for. Unfortunately, the only
Except-
ones that are feeling like this is an underdog situation are the Houston fans, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I had a delay there. I apologize, but are the Houston fans? So the thing is I think that you were kind of touching on some of the national writers, and nobody's really picking the Astros in this. There's a lot more out there than you think that are in support of the Astros, but being the fact of what happened, it's turned into a little bit of Major League Baseball's villain team, right? Which is just fine too. If you embrace it, it is what it is. And the Astros are trying to move on from that, and they have moved on from that. But it's going to be one of those situations that you haven't seen before. Like I've seen out there in social media and in some of the press releases that when New York lost and Tampa Bay was moving on, you had a lot more New York fans kind of supporting Tampa on their quest coming in against Houston, and that never really happens. I mean, you guys know the fans out there in New York; they're kind of a tough crowd, and so for everybody's kind of the swell of Tampa Bay or Tampa, I guess the following that Tampa is kind of starting to get right now, I think is more based on the villain that Houston has become ever since everything happened with the whole World Series scandal.
All right. So speaking of underdogs, I know Brett's going to laugh at me, but you got to look at the Astros bullpen and people like Cy Snead and Luis Garcia, who have not pitched in the playoffs. They've been on the roster an entire time, but this is a 7-game series. This is something that's a little bit different. I don't know your entire playoff background, but if you are a pitcher like Cy Snead or somebody like that who hasn't pitched in playoffs, and it seems like maybe a manager doesn't really trust you in certain situations, what happens when you get your chance? How do you get the motivation to be, I know I'm better than the coach thinks I am? Or how do you go out there and kind of pitch after nobody really believes in you?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily that nobody believes in him. I mean, like, you got to think about this. The starting rotation has gotten in games to where they, for the most part, have gotten to somewhat of the staples of the bullpen, right? And that's what you're going to go with in the playoffs. I mean, the idea is for your starter to go, 5+ innings so you can kind of get towards the back end of that bullpen. Now, whenever you're talking about the guys that you're talking about guys that are going to be eating up some innings. They're not going to come in and close a game typically. Okay. Now it's kind of an all hands on deck situation, but it's not about Dusty Baker not having confidence in him. I mean, the fact of the matter is you're going to go with your horses right now. The starting rotation is going somewhat deep in the ballgame to get to those guys. So you're going to go with them as long as they're fresh. I mean, that's why they're the guys that they are. They're in your 7th, 8th, 9th inning. There's a setup man. You got your closer. You may have a bridge in the 6th that you feel a little bit more confident with, but some of those other guys, you also have to save too, because what if we start getting hit as a starting pitcher in the first inning where we might have to put in one of those guys? So then you think about, well, okay, we got to cover all those innings to get to our horse. So I don't think anybody back there in the bullpen is thinking that they don't have any confidence in those pitchers. They're there for a reason. The roles that they serve just haven't come up as much in this particular series in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you see those guys if the Astros have a game like they did against Oakland, where they're up like 11-5, 11-3, 9-2. I think if the Astros get this insurmountable lead, 6, 7, 8 runs, I think that's when those guys will probably get that work. And, I think Eric's trying to use some telepathy and I think he's trying to get Cy Snead in the game.
I think he's going to come in and pitch like 3 innings, shutout innings. And he's trust the beard.
I don't know. Hey, look, like I said, anytime I'm critical of any major league player that's currently playing, I never say it with the tongue that I could go out there and do better, because obviously I didn't even make it out of high school. So
there's only one person that could in this little Zoom.
That's
video.
right.
I know, and all he does is talk bad about me, about what he could do. About like, hey, I could go out there and totally do that. But I guess I'm a retired player, so that's why you do it. I'm not a current player, so yeah.
No,
those days are gone.
Right, exactly. No, but full disclosure here, Clay. Going into tomorrow. If I were to say what is the one thing that the Astros have to do to secure a victory, if you could just pick one thing, I know there's probably many, but let's just laser focus on one thing. You're going in. What does your team have to do to win?
They have to score more runs than the other team.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
You said one thing. That is some expert analysis right there. Okay, so I don't know if anybody out there is listening, but usually the team that scores more wins. That's what the Astros have to do. But no, in all reality, I honestly don't think they really need to change much. I wouldn't go in there with because you lost 2 games, we need to reinvent the wheel. Look at the numbers. You guys were talking about it tonight. They're hitting the ball hard. You guys starters are going deep in the ball game. That's all you can ask of those guys, right? Now those balls just need to fall in. Just stay the course. Stay the course. That's all they got to do. Now I wouldn't change much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's frustrating in the 9th inning today when the Astros loaded the bases after 2 straight walks. And I think it was Nick Anderson on the mound. He threw 8 straight balls. And I know Astros Twitter kind of went off when Alex Bregman swung at the first pitch. Is that something that you typically see from major league hitters after they know that the first 2 people in front of them walked on 8 straight pitches? And are you going to take a pitch there, or are most major league hitters going to be like, oh, they're probably going to want to throw a fastball, so let me gear up for that?
Well, so ask yourself this: if you were gonna, if you walk a guy in a situation like that, you're gonna really focus on throwing a strike and not even really be down in the zone, more so just out over the plate. The first pitch swinging, I don't mind. I don't mind because it's Bregman. That's why. If it was anybody else, on most teams, that's not going to be your horse at the plate. Fortunately enough, Houston's got a lot of those guys that come up in the lineup, but a guy like him, absolutely, he can swing at first pitch. If you're looking at something lower in the lineup, you might want him to take a pitch, work a little bit, but the chances are he's going to hit the ball hard. He did it all day today. And if he ambushes him because he knows he's throwing a fastball over plate, I don't think he's going to throw that many balls and then start with an off-speed pitch. It's kind of like the trend of the game at that time. I think a guy like him absolutely can try to ambush him for sure. That's what he tried to do.
Because if he hits that ball maybe 5 feet to the right of the center fielder, that's a gapper, and you're scoring 2 runs. You're possibly scoring that run from first, because I believe wasn't Miles Straw on first base? He was pinch running, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he was already out. Yeah, because remember, he got into double play. They pinched. It was Ledmez Diaz, I think, came in, or I think somebody came in and got a hit
from Maldonado, right?
Yes, and it was Ledmez Diaz. I think he got a hit, and then they pinch ran Miles Straw, but then he immediately George Springer grounded into a double play.
Right.
Miles Straw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
But
I'm sorry.
to touch on the point though, right there, Brett. Like the fact of the matter is, if he hits that ball and it falls in, it's kind of where you're going with this. Then we're not talking about the first pitch. We're talking about how he ambushed him, right? So that's what I mean. It's like a guy like him can do that because he's the guy that he still hit the ball hard. He just hit it right at the guy. And look, one thing I did want to touch on a little bit is, you talk about the hits that the Astros had, and when you're looking at the line, you also got to remember who started for the Rays. This is a guy, and I the only reason I kind of want to touch on it a little bit is because I was similar in the way we both pitch. As a power sinker guy, I didn't care about walks and I didn't care about hits. I honestly didn't. If I walked a guy, I looked at it as an opportunity to throw a good pitch down and away and get the guy to roll out on a double play. That's what you're thinking of. Greg Maddux talked about that a lot. Even the guy that, kind of was the mentor for Morton, Roy Halladay. I got his jersey back here, by the way, just sitting up for it. But, the late, great Halladay, I mean, they mirrored each other the way they looked, and he worked with them. And that's what we talk about. I talked with Roy about this, talked with Woody Williams, Greg Maddux, all those guys that were ground ball guys. Don't worry about hits. You want to pitch the contact. So it's like, they're hitting a lot of singles, right? Singles don't kill you as a power sinker ball guy. And you can see that. And Morton kind of had a little bit of revived the arm a little bit. It had velocity up a lot more than he typically had during the season.
Yeah, and it was kind of bittersweet going against Charlie Morton. This was the only reason that the Astros, well, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons the Astros have a World Series championship. So we're going to have to wrap up the show pretty quickly. Let's go and do our predictions. I'm going to have to go with the Astros win. I mean, eventually that's got to happen. The hits got to start falling. Obviously, runs are going to be not as plenty as it was in the A series. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Astros win tomorrow game 3-1.
What about you, Clay? What do you say?
Well, so if you're talking about percentages, 85% of playoff teams that won the first 2 games that are leading to on a 7-game set win the series. only happened since last time it happened in 2004. They came back when the Red Sox did that from a 3-0 deficit. So I like the Astros grittiness. I think they're going to stay the course. I think they are going to be one of that small percentage that does come back, like Boston did in 2004. And honestly, I'm looking at a hit parade tomorrow. I'm going to call a hit parade right now. I think Houston's going to come out banging it.
I think they need to, honestly. Go ahead, Brett.
Okay, so I have been way off since I declared myself the sage of the MLB. So I kind of jinxed myself. I kind of Brian McTaggart myself there. So I'm going to say tomorrow that I'm going to go back to my 4-1. I think the Astros win 4-1 tomorrow. I think maybe in the first inning, the Rays get their only run they get in the inning. Urquidy settles down. He goes 7 plus, 7 strong. I think you see Javier possibly and Paredes, one of those guys, hard throwers. But I think it's 4-1 Astros tomorrow. They get over the Schneid, and then they go in with some renewed life from there.
What'd you pick yesterday, though? What'd you pick yesterday? What was the score?
7-3. Okay. Astros.
All right. So, okay, I like that. I just want to make sure we're trending on the opposite direction of where you've been going the last 2 days.
Yeah, I am man enough to admit when my picks suck and I'm wrong. See, that's also why I don't gamble. Because it's just it's not good.
Unless you want Cy Snead pitching Game 5, Christian Javier is not going tomorrow.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I think I was thinking of Anoli Paredes when I said Christian Javier. Yeah, I corrected myself in my mind.
And I was so close today with Kyle Tucker hitting a homer. I think I said that in yesterday's show, and the Astros has had so many deep balls. Before we go, Manny Margot, he basically threw his whole body over that right field wall. That's just crazy that he's still walking around and able to play. And this guy, if the Rays go on to win the series, I would have to say that this guy probably deserves the MVP of the series.
If the game was over if it was done tonight, right? I mean, there's still theoretically you want Astros to keep going. So there's a lot of baseball. You got to stay positive here. It goes down the drain with the shower, baby. You got to stay positive. But no, Manny Margot, he's familiar with that outfield. He's been there before, knows where the walls are. If you go look at that replay, you can see how he looked like he was going to catch the ball in right field, and all of a sudden he did a dead sprint for the wall, so he was timing it. It was good to see Manny out there doing his thing. Unfortunately, it wasn't good for the Astros, but I think they'll pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope the Astros come back, and I think that they will. They do have the talent. And just think about it this way. We saw how Valdez and McCullers pitched, so they're the Game 6 and 7 pitchers. So that looks very positive for the Astros. So the Astros just got to come out and really take care of business tomorrow. And I'm going to go ahead and say that George Springer, he's got to get his mojo back. So I'm going to go ahead and predict that he hits a homer tomorrow. But overall, it's just frustrating to see the Astros losing these type of games. But as Clay says, it's baseball. I mean, you can't basically say, Lady Luck, we want the ball to go 5 more inches this way. It just happens.
Keep hitting it hard, man. Keep hitting it hard.
Right. All right, guys, that's all we got for tonight's Locked On Astros podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. And thank you, Clay, as always, for joining. And where can they find you again on Twitter?
On Twitter, you can find me at chensley32 and on Instagram at clay.hensley or on a lake fishing.
So did you catch anything today?
I watched my son catch fish today. He was ripping them up. So the answer is long and short, no, I didn't, but he did. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, you always sacrifice for your kids. So, all right, that's all we got. And don't forget to go check our friends Solely over the Locked On MLB podcast. And hopefully Astros come back with a Game 3 victory. This is Locked On Astros podcast. We'll talk to you tomorrow.